Imagine this. It's freezing and snowing outside, but your holiday table features vibrant, crisp, fragrant greens, freshly snipped from your own windowsill garden. Do you think this is complicated and requires special equipment? What if I told you that absolutely anyone can grow a bountiful harvest of fresh onions, garlic, parsley, and even beet greens just in time for the holidays? In this video, I will reveal all the secrets of the simple and fascinating process of forcing greens indoors. You'll learn how to turn ordinary store-bought root vegetables and bulbs into an endless source of vitamins. Stay with us, and your windowsill will transform into a true green oasis that will impress every guest at your holiday dinner. Before we start planting, let's understand exactly what forcing is. The word might sound a bit scientific or complicated, but the process itself is incredibly simple. Forcing is not about growing a plant from seed from scratch. It's about awakening the stored energy dormant inside bulbs and root vegetables. Essentially, we create spring-like conditions for them, encouraging them to sprout new green growth using only their internal reserves of nutrients. That's why the results appear so quickly. This is a method our grandmothers used to get fresh vitamins in the middle of winter. Even without greenhouses or special grow lights, we simply take a ready-made battery, a bulb, or a parsley root, and make it give us all its energy in the form of juicy, healthy greens. It's practically a foolproof method that guarantees success even for the most inexperienced gardeners. So how do we start any garden, even one right on the windowsill? It all begins with preparation naturally. You don't need expensive or bulky equipment here. Our setup is simple: planting containers, the right soil, and naturally, water. For containers, you can use standard flower pots, plastic food containers, or even just cut plastic bottles. The golden rule here is drainage. Make sure the bottom of your container has holes so excess water can drain away easily. Stagnant water is the #1 enemy of seedlings and young plants. It causes roots and bulbs to rot. So, if the container you choose doesn't have holes already, be sure to make some yourself using a knife or an awl. The container depth should be sufficient to accommodate at least 2/3 of the root vegetable or bulb. Shallow trays work well for growing onions and garlic, but for herbs like parsley and celery, you'll definitely want something deeper. Everything truly brilliant is simple, and setting up your home garden is no exception. The next important component is your soil mix. Many beginner gardeners make a common mistake: scooping up soil directly from the garden or outside beds. This is something you absolutely must avoid. That kind of soil often harbours overwintering pest larvae or disease spores. Once they hit those warm indoor conditions, they activate quickly and can easily wipe out your entire harvest. The safest and simplest route is to buy a ready-made universal potting mix designed specifically for seedlings or houseplants from any garden centre. Commercial mixes are usually already sterilised, have a loose, airy structure, and a perfectly balanced nutrient profile. If you absolutely insist on using your own garden soil, you must sterilise it first. You can do this by baking it in the oven or deep freezing it outside for several days to eliminate all those unwanted hitchhikers. You should also consider improving the structure of the soil by mixing in a little vermiculite or perlite. These additions will make the mix lighter and greatly improve water retention, characteristics that your future green friends will absolutely love. Now let's talk about the real star of our indoor garden, the humble onion. You might think, what's the big deal? Just grab any bulb and stick it in the soil. But right here is the first major secret to a truly abundant harvest. Many growers assume that the bigger the onion bulb, the more green shoots it will produce. That is a very common myth. In reality, giant bulbs often spend too much time just establishing roots and tend to yield only 1 or 2 thick but sparse green shoots. The ideal candidate is actually a medium-sized, firm bulb, free of damage or rot, weighing roughly 40 to 60 grams. But the most crucial factor is the number of growth points. If you gently feel underneath the dry outer layers, you can often detect several firm bumps. These are the future points of growth. The more you find, the bushier and lusher your cluster of greens will become. Multi-sprouting varieties such as Stuttgarter Riesen or Besonovsky are absolutely perfect for this purpose. And finally, if you spot a bulb that has already started sprouting on its own, that's the jackpot. Grab it immediately. It's primed and ready to go and will yield delicious greens faster than anything else. Preparing your onion bulbs for planting is a small but essential ritual that can speed up the appearance of fresh green shoots by several days. First, we need to gently wake up our sleepy bulbs. To do this, carefully trim about 1/2 inch or 1 centimetre off the dry tip of the onion. This simple step opens the path for the young green sprouts to emerge. Second, to sanitize your planting material and give growth an extra boost, soak the bulbs in warm water, ideally between 104 and 122 degrees Fahrenheit, 40 to 50 degrees Celsius, for 20 to 30 minutes. You can also add a few crystals of potassium permanganate to the water until you achieve a faint pink solution. This warm bath will help the bulb wake up even faster and encourage it to actively start forming its root system. Some gardeners also like to remove the outer, shiny layer of dry, papery skin, but this step is completely optional. The most important thing is not to damage the body of the bulb itself or the root plate at the base, which is where the new roots will grow. These simple steps are your guarantee of a quick, vigorous and uniform start. Let's get started with planting our onion bulbs. There are 2 main methods for growing onions for greens: planting them in soil or rooting them in water. Growing them in soil is generally the preferred method. The soil provides the necessary nutrients, resulting in greens that are much juicier and more flavourful. First, add a small drainage layer, like clay pebbles or gravel, to the bottom of your container. Then, fill the container with potting soil, leaving about 1 inch of space below the rim. Lightly compact the soil and then give it a thorough watering. Now we can plant our prepared onion bulbs. You can plant them very close together, side by side. This is often called the bridge method. Press the bulbs firmly into the soil, burying them about halfway or up to 2/3 of their height. Remember, you should not cover them completely. The root plate at the base of the bulb needs to be in tight contact with the moist soil to encourage proper root growth. Once planted, set the container in a warm location for a few days. It doesn't necessarily need direct sunlight yet. As soon as the first green shoots emerge, you can confidently move your mini garden to the brightest windowsill you have. The second method, which many of us learned as kids, is growing onions in water. It's even simpler, but it does have a few specific details to keep in mind. You'll need a small cup or a jar. Crucially, the bulb should not sit submerged in the water. Only the very bottom where the roots sprout should be touching the surface. If the main bulb is underwater, it will likely rot quickly. To achieve this, you can use specialised growing caps with holes, or simply select a jar with a narrow opening. You need to change the water every 1 or 2 days. This prevents stagnation and avoids any unpleasant odours. To further prevent rot, consider dropping a tablet of activated charcoal into the water. The greens grow very fast using this method, but they tend to be slightly more watery and have a less intense flavour compared to those grown in soil. Also, keep in mind that one bulb will typically only provide one main harvest before its internal resources are completely depleted. This method is perfect if you need a quick burst of fresh green onions in a hurry. Now let's move on to the next aromatic resident of our windowsill setup: garlic. Garlic greens or shoots have a more delicate and savoury flavour than standard onion chives, making them a fantastic addition to both salads and cooked meals. To force these greens, we will need individual cloves. It's best to use hardneck or winter garlic varieties, as their cloves are typically larger and they tend to sprout quicker indoors. Select the biggest, healthiest and firmest cloves from the bulb, making sure they are free of mould, blemishes or other damage. If you have the opportunity, look for garlic that has already started producing tiny green sprouts. This is a reliable sign that the clove is vigorous and ready for strong, active growth. A crucial tip: avoid using imported garlic from typical grocery stores. It is frequently treated with sprout-inhibiting chemicals, making it difficult to grow. The ideal choices are homegrown garlic or bulbs purchased directly from a local farmer or farmer's market stand. Planting garlic is very much like planting onions. Start by grabbing the container with good drainage holes and filling it with moist, loose potting mix. You don't need to soak or trim the garlic cloves beforehand. Simply press them into the soil about 1 inch deep, spacing them roughly an inch apart. Make sure you plant them root end down and pointy tip up. That's where the green shoot will emerge. After planting, you can lightly water the soil again. Just like with onions, you don't have to bury the cloves completely. The tips can remain visible or level with the soil surface. Cover the container with plastic wrap or a bag to create a mini greenhouse effect and speed up germination. Place the container in a warm spot, and within a few days, you should see those first welcome green shoots pop up. As soon as the shoots appear, remove the covering and move the container to a bright, sunny location. Caring for garlic greens on your windowsill is very easy. The main thing is ensuring they get enough light and moderate watering. Like onions, garlic doesn't tolerate overwatering. Only water when the top layer of soil dries out using room temperature water. Try to pour the water directly at the base of the plant, avoiding the green shoots themselves, to ensure the greens grow straight, and don't stretch toward the window. Periodically rotate the container. You can start harvesting when the shoots reach 15 to 20 centimeters in height. Don't pull them out entirely. Instead, carefully snip the greens with scissors, leaving 2 to 3 centimeter stubs at the base. New shoots will soon start growing from these stubs. This method allows you to collect several waves of fragrant greens from a single planting. It's a true continuous green harvest right on your window. And now, let's talk about the true queen of flavour, parsley. A lot of people don't realise that getting fresh, lush winter greens doesn't require seeding and waiting months. You can use the roots instead. This is an incredibly efficient way to force growth. For this method, we'll need parsley taproots, which you can easily buy at the market or in the produce section of your grocery store. Choose the strongest, smoothest and healthiest roots, checking carefully for any signs of wilting or rot. The ideal size is about 2 to 4 centimeters thick and at least 10 centimeters long. The most crucial part is the apical bud, which is located right on the crown of the root. It must be alive and undamaged, as this is where your greens will sprout from. If the root already has tiny leaves growing, that's absolutely perfect. A specimen like that will give you a harvest in the shortest time possible. Just be sure to avoid roots that are too thin, or conversely, those that are giant and overgrown. Getting your parsley roots ready for planting is straightforward. If the roots are too long for your pot, you can safely trim them from the bottom, aiming for a length of about 10 to 15 centimeters. To disinfect the cut end, you can dust it with crushed charcoal. Before planting, soak the roots in room temperature water for a couple of hours so they can fully hydrate. For planting, make sure you use a pot deep enough for the root to fit comfortably. Fill the pot with moist potting mix and plant the roots. Plant them at a slight angle. This saves space and helps them receive maximum light exposure. The crown where the new growth emerges should remain level with the soil surface, or even slightly higher. Do not bury it. Firmly compact the soil around the root to avoid leaving any air pockets. Water moderately immediately after planting. Unlike scallions or onions, parsley needs to be placed on a bright windowsill right away. Caring for parsley that is being grown indoors requires a little more attention than, say, green onions, but the payoff is definitely worth the extra effort. Parsley loves light, so you need to find the absolute brightest spot in your home for it. Ideally, that means a south or southwest facing windowsill. If the light is insufficient, especially during those dark, cloudy winter days, the leaves will stretch out, become pale, and lose their rich, intense flavour. If this happens, supplemental lighting will really help. You can use a standard desk lamp or a dedicated grow light for several hours a day. Water your parsley regularly. You should never let the soil completely dry out, but be careful not to turn the container into a swamp either. The optimal growing temperature is around 64 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. If the temperature is too high, the greens may grow too fast and won't be as flavourful. You can start harvesting your first leaves in about 3 to 4 weeks. When you cut, always take the outer, larger leaves, leaving the centre of the rosette untouched so the plant can continue producing new growth. Another close relative of parsley that is also excellent for forcing indoors is celeriac, or root celery. Its greens have an even stronger, spicier aroma, making them perfect for flavouring soups, sauces, and meat dishes. The forcing process is practically the same as with parsley. You'll need a small, healthy celeriac root. Look for dense, firm specimens about the size of a small apple, making sure the crown, or the apical bud, is alive and undamaged. Grocery stores often sell celeriac with the leaves already removed, but with the top neatly trimmed. That's exactly what we want. Before planting, feel free to trim the bottom roots if they are excessively long, then soak the entire root in water for a few hours. You'll want a pot whose diameter is just slightly wider than the root itself. Like parsley, celeriac thrives in rich, loose soil. The planting technique is identical. Set the root so that the growth point remains fully above the soil line. Once you've planted your celery, taking care of it is relatively easy. The keys to success are bright light and consistent watering. Place the pot on your brightest windowsill. Celery loves moisture, so make sure the soil is always slightly damp. Drying out can stop the greenery from growing. However, just like with any indoor plant, it's crucial to prevent water from stagnating in the saucer or tray. The ideal temperature range for celery is between 15 and 18 degrees Celsius. It really doesn't like heat, so avoid placing it near radiators or central heating units. While the greens might grow slower in these cooler conditions, they will become incredibly fragrant and deeply flavourful. You can start harvesting the first tender leaves in just 3 to 4 weeks. Just like when harvesting parsley, cut the outer stalks, making sure to leave the central growth point intact so the stump can continue developing. A single root stump like this can provide you with fresh greens for several months. But wait, here's a surprise. Did you know you can use ordinary table beets to grow fresh greens? We usually appreciate beets for their root, but their young leaves, the beet greens, are a real nutritional powerhouse, loaded with vitamins and microelements. Their flavour is similar to spinach or Swiss chard, making them perfect for salads, soups and smoothies. To start forcing these greens, we'll only need the very top section of the beetroot. When you're shopping, look for smaller, firm beets with smooth skin. It's ideal if you can already see the tiny beginnings of future leaves at the crown. Back home, use a sharp knife to slice off the top 2 to 3 centimetres of the root. This little cap is going to be our planting material. The rest of the beet can still be used for borscht or vinaigrette. It's truly zero waste production in action. This simple method allows you to get maximum benefit from a single vegetable. Growing greens from beet tops is arguably the easiest gardening project out there. First, grab a shallow plate, saucer or small tray. For the base, you can lay down cotton wool, a few paper napkins, or simply use a thin layer of soil, sand, or even sawdust. The key is choosing a material that holds moisture well. Thoroughly dampen your base with water, then simply place the trimmed beet tops onto it, cut side down. Press them gently into the substrate. You can easily fit several of these caps into a single container. Place your new miniature garden on a bright windowsill. That's it. You don't need to do anything else. Your only job is to ensure the substrate maintains constant moisture and never dries out completely. Within just a few days, bright young leaves, often deep burgundy with visible veins, will start sprouting from the centre of the tops. Not only are these greens nutritious, but they also create a strikingly beautiful display right on your window. Beet greens sprout incredibly fast. In just a week and a half to 2 weeks after planting, you'll have young leaves, about 4 to 6 inches tall, completely ready for harvest. You can gently snip them off with scissors, or just pinch them away. The more frequently you harvest, the more vigorously the new leaves will sprout. Now, this method won't provide you with greens for the entire winter, since the nutrient reserves in that small piece of root are limited. Typically, one beet top will produce actively for about 3 to 4 weeks, after which point it's best to swap it out for a fresh one. But given how simple this process is and how little space it requires, you can easily organise a continuous green conveyor belt by planting new tops every week. It's an excellent, effortless way to add a pop of colour and essential nutrients to your winter diet. Let's talk about light, because during winter, it is the most critical resource our houseplants lack. Short daylight hours and gloomy weather can significantly stunt growth, leaving your greenery looking pale and becoming leggy. To prevent this, make sure to place your plants on the brightest windowsills you have available. South, southeast, or southwest facing windows are ideal. Also, make sure you regularly wipe the dust off your windows. Even a thin film of dirt can block up to 30% of the available light. Remember to rotate the containers every couple of days so that your plants grow straight and don't start leaning heavily toward the window. If you notice your greenery is still stretching out, it's time to organise some supplementary lighting. You don't necessarily have to buy expensive specialised grow lights. To start, a regular cool white LED or fluorescent bulb will work just fine. Turn this light on for 3 to 4 hours in the morning and again for the same amount of time in the evening, extending their daylight period to 12 to 14 hours total. Let's talk about one of the most common mistakes: improper watering. The cardinal rule for all forced crops is this: it's better to slightly underwater than to overwater. Waterlogged soil starves the roots of oxygen and creates the perfect environment for root rot and harmful bacteria to thrive. Your bulbs and root vegetables could simply rot away. Only water your plants when the top half-inch, 1 to 2 centimetres, of soil is dry to the touch. Always use room temperature, dechlorinated water, since cold tap water can shock or stress the plants. Try to water carefully at the base of the plant, avoiding getting water into the centre crown or rosette of herbs like parsley and celery. If water collects in the drainage source after watering, make sure you drain it completely within 30 to 40 minutes. The key is finding that sweet spot, keeping the soil consistently moist, but never turning it into a soggy mess. The final critical factor is temperature and air humidity. In winter, centralised heating systems make the air in our homes incredibly dry, which is really tough on plants. The hot air rising directly off radiators can quickly dry out or even scorch your greenery. To create better conditions, you can place a shallow dish of water near your containers or periodically mist the air around the plants with a sprayer. Regarding temperature, most crops grown for greens do not tolerate high heat well. The perfect range is between 15 and 22 degrees. At higher temperatures, the greens grow faster, but tend to become weak, leggy, and much less flavourful. That is why you should avoid placing your containers in the warmest spot in the room. A cooler windowsill is exactly what you need to achieve a high-quality, fragrant harvest. Always remember the 3 pillars of success: light, moderate watering, and coolness. So let's quickly recap. We've proven today that you don't need to be an expert gardener or an experienced agronomist just to set up your own green corner right on your windowsill. All it takes is a little bit of motivation, some basic supplies, and the planting material you can find at any local grocery store. Forcing greens like onions, garlic, parsley, celery, and even beets isn't just a great way to provide your family with fresh vitamins, especially during the cold winter months. It's also an incredibly fun and rewarding activity that brings a ton of positive feelings. Watching life sprout from a seemingly dormant bulb right before your eyes, that's pure winter magic. I truly hope this video has inspired you to start your own little indoor garden. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you found this guide helpful, please support us by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. That way you won't miss any of our future videos. Now for a question for you. What green would you love to grow on your windowsill first? Or maybe you already have a successful forcing setup running. Make sure to share your stories and photos down in the comments below. We'll see you next time.